intro video. How about that?
Yep. Sucks though.
Hard work, steely resolve, and sure grittiness.
It starts with an attitude. We need swagger, okay? Regardless of what happens out there. Doesn't matter. Keep your swagger.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Five Hole Fantasy Hockey Podcast. We're your hosts today, TJ, Zach, Craig. What's happening, boys?
What?
TJ, Raj, goddamn. I was like, make sure you say Craig's name because it's so. That's the different part for me. So it was always like TJ, Zach, and Raj, right? But then I was like, all right, TJ, Raj, and Craig. How about it?
And now I'm balding, so it's more like.
It's
easier.
Yeah, it's right. It's on brand.
I was surprised you didn't go TJ, Raj, and me because you are still the two OGs. We're now just going to be rotating Zach's spot, right? So with the rest of the taxi squad guys. So.
Well, anyway, I was so proud that I hit the overlay coming off and like all this YouTube shit. I was feeling good. I was like, fuck yeah, I'm getting the hang of this. And then yeah, here we go. Anyway, guys, it is our first episode of quote unquote in-season content. I know we're not in season, but we wanted to get a week preview out to you. This week one is a bit of a strange one. Yahoo and Fantrax both have it running from October 4th to October 13th. So it's a double period, right? So we're going to get this preview out of the way. There's a couple good teams, a couple good streams out there for you guys to be targeting. And that's what we want to get into the rhythm of as we shake this rust off with Raj and Craig. I got that right this time. So today we're going to preview that first matchup, the teams and streams we're targeting, a little bit of news and updates around the league as things start to progress. We got some clarity on Laine, some clarity on Reinbacher, and some other things that we're going to get into here. But Craig, why don't you take us into the injuries there and some of the highlights here? I know this goalie bullshit kind of at the forefront.
Yeah, so we can kick it off with what's going on with Swayman. I'm sure, the people that are digging deep at stuff, it looks like they're pretty far off in terms of what Swayman's looking for. I saw a report earlier today that he was originally asking for the same contract that Pasta got, which was 8 by 9.5. Obviously, the Bruins aren't offering that. It looks like they're offering that 8 by 8. From the report that I read, I think it was from Friedman. He said that they're like in between that number. Swayman's still like low 9s, high 8s. It's not the term. I don't know, boys. Do we see Swayman demanding a trade at this point? Like, I saw you Teej talking to somebody on the Discord. Like, Corpy's not the guy. Right?
Corpy's not the guy. No.
Didn't they just claim somebody from Vancouver, Raj, earlier today as well? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, but I mean, Vancouver needs a goalie, and they didn't want this Peterka. So that's the guy they picked up. I don't think Swayman's going anywhere unless it's like some kind of sign and trade or something. He doesn't want out of Boston. Like he's just trying to hold out. He wants way too much money. He wants way too much term. I don't think he's going anywhere. I think it's just a flex, and we'll see him in a week or two. I don't think it's going to be like a Nylander thing where he goes months into the season or anything like that. I think
there are quite a few teams that have a bunch of money available that could use a goalie. Columbus, I mean, I know Merzlikins is kind of their guy, but how tied down to him are they? They have Tarasov obviously in the pipe and everything. Anaheim is, pretty much set with Dostal and Calle Klang. Calgary, Dustin Wolf is a guy, but you got Vladar, bring Swayman and Vladar back together. San Jose's got Askarov, Utah, kind of a toss up there. I wonder if they do something. But then that's where Boston is. And they have 8.5 available right now. So like there's 5 teams that have more money than Boston right now. And I would say like 2, maybe 3 of them would not be interested in a goalie. And I'm not trying to like downplay Swayman or anything because obviously he's talented. But, there's teams here that probably want to use that money for something else. So like really, what's he going to be doing?
What's your inkling? Because I tend to agree with Raj on this one. Like, there's no way that Boston's going to let him walk. Like, I think they're probably going to land on maybe what do you think that he does lesser terms, 6x8?
I would think it needs to be a bridge at this point. You're so far apart. The season starts in like 3 days. So for me, like, cut down on the term, give him, some high money for 2-3 years. And by that time, also the NHL has a higher cap. So yes, he's probably going to be better. He's probably going to be worth more in a couple of years. And I'm sure that's part of what Swayman is kind of arguing right now. He's like, yeah, it's an overpay for a couple of years, but 4 years down the road, it's going to be a bargain, right? So I don't know. The bridge is kind of dangerous from a team perspective, and it's disappointing from a player perspective, but it gets everybody what they want. Like, if Swayman's just looking at numbers, he gets that numbers for a few years, and then the team kicks the can down the road and starts negotiations and has 2 or 3 years to figure it out. So I think they'll land on a bridge, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't think goalies, I don't think any player should get huge long contracts at huge amounts of dollars. It just doesn't, like, how many Huberdeaus do we need to see before like, if a guy's
it didn't work out. I thought that worked. Okay, no.
There's still time.
Worked out for Florida,
There's so much time. They have so much time to hold on to because no one's going to take it. But, I mean, I think to me, like, Swayman should be like he's been great, but he was also great on a historically great team. Like, that's when he was great, is when Boston was breaking records of wins. And it wasn't just him, it was the other goalie too. So they got into a spot where they traded the other goalie. Swayman's flexing. He's like, I'm pretty young, I'm pretty great, but I think he's probably going to settle for 2 or 3 years at a pretty high AAV. And it's like, prove it. And then maybe you'll get 10 or 12 next time when there's more money down the road. But, like, Boston doesn't want to be without a goalie. Without a goalie, they're a bullshit team. Like, without a goalie, they're fucked.
And I mean, that's where you're at with Korpisalo, pretty much. I don't trust Korpisalo at all. So, yes, he's going to be a number 1 going into the season if everything stays static to where it is right now with Swayman without a contract, things like that. And if you're looking for starts, if you faded goalies in your draft and you wind up with Korpisalo, you're going to get the games. It's just, I don't think they're going to be good games, and that's what happens at the end of your draft. Right. Yeah. So it just depends what you're looking for. Like, there's different leagues out there. If you're just looking for volume, he's going to be one of those guys. I mean, Varlamov is going to be one of those guys. There's still a huge question mark hanging over Sorokin, huge question mark hanging over Demko. So that's going to be Shilov's. It's going to be, I think that's going to be a 50-50. Like, Shilov's will probably get the first game, I would think. But if you're Vancouver, and Raj, definitely looking forward to you weighing in on this one, because you're, that's a stone's throw from where you're at. But, like, if you're Vancouver management, right, and you have better insight into what's actually going on with Demko, because I'm sure they actually know. We don't know. They don't want it public. So if you know it's going to be a long time, you probably want internal competition. You want Lankinen, you want Shilovs kind of competing against each other, because that makes the whole team better. Like, if both goalies are trying their best to beat the other guy and the other team, like, you get 2 more motivated goalies. So I don't know. I think Shilovs gets game 1, probably Lankinen game 2, and then you just ride the hot hand until there is a little bit of clarity, a little bit of public clarity on what's going on with Demko.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're totally right. It's going to be Silov's first. I mean, he was such a savior in the playoffs. Like, he came in, he kicked ass for Vancouver at the end of last season. And I don't know how much it translates outside of downtown Vancouver, but he is such a fun guy. Like, I don't know if you saw the whole thing with his shirt. He started this whole shirt craze. And he wore a funny shirt to a practice, and JT Miller wore it out, and is his whole thing. But he's a great guy. So everyone, including management, and he's young, and he comes through. He won that whole thing for Latvia. He won MVP when he was a young guy and all that stuff. So he's played big games. He's always come through. they want him to be the next goalie. They want him to come through. But you can't, if Demko's going to be a while, which, I mean, they said he was going to be back 4 months ago. They said he was going to be back in the next round in the playoffs. So they obviously don't trust that or believe that. But they can't, you know, if a guy like Seelovs has played, 2 weeks in the NHL, basically, like 3 weeks, you can't, like, run a team.
He had an injury of his own this summer too. Like he had that knee thing where he was overworking himself. So they need to be careful with him. So 50-50 split, I think, works for everybody.
Yeah, but part of that is him making an outright, like, public show that he's dedicated to the Canucks and wants to be the guy. That's why he didn't play. But yeah, no, they want him to be the number one till Demko comes back. But again, you can't risk a season on a guy who's played a handful of games. They were great games, but he's only played a handful. So that's what Lankinen. But also, you can't hitch your season playoff team to Lankinen either. So,
whew. Fingers crossed in Vancouver, I bet. Craig, why don't you take us through the rest of these injuries and we'll move into the week.
Yeah, so I think we'll touch on Laine first. And you said they brought out. Was it what's the other kid, the young kid?
Reinbacher. Yeah, I think Reinbacher was like 5 to 6 months, and Laine was more of a 2 to 3. So huge dodge of a bullet for Laine.
Yeah, so Laine's probably back late January, early February, right? Maybe before Christmas.
Yeah, if we could see him around Christmas, that would be huge.
Yeah, so perhaps those that have drafted him already, as we speak.
Stash.
Pulling the curtain back, I'm actually doing my last draft as we are.
How many rounds you got left? I'll try to minimize how much you're talking while you're drafting. I'll throw to Raj.
we got 4 rounds left
right.
in a 16-team leaguer. So we're almost at the finish line. It's my last one before we kick into the season. So
all right.
But we did get a couple of, I guess you got the triple shot in Ottawa yesterday.
Right.
I saw the report from Travis Green this morning saying that all 3 would be updated in terms of status tomorrow. They most likely are short-term injuries, but with Chabot and Stützle specifically, both have injury history. So you never know with those guys, especially with Stützle being the head injury off the Wi-Fi hit shoulder to head. And then Tkachuk got an upper body injury right after that because he fought Wi-Fi and hurt himself in that fight, standing up for Stützle. And then Chabot went awkwardly into the boards and also went out with a upper body injury. And everybody knows what Chabot injury history is, so you never know with him how long he's actually going to be out. But not the best news from the Ottawa game last night against the Habs, especially with a lot of drafts happening last night for those that took Tkachuk in the back half of your first round, and then Stützle somewhere in your second and third round. Kind of messy.
This preseason, right? Man. This preseason's been brutal. I mean, Doughty goes down. A lot of like really big injuries, and I wonder if they start. It already feels like they reel back pretty heavily, right? Like your stars aren't playing every night, but I wonder if it's just prospect camp next year. Like this is insane. Like the Kings lost Doughty. The big teams are losing big pieces, and I just don't think that's going to be a trend that teams really want to continue at all.
I think you might see it turn into the NFL. You might just hold out all your stars, right, where they don't play at all, right, and then it's just a slow haul out the gate to kick off the season because you just don't want these guys injured because it just brings your chances of coming out the gate strong down. Like if Tkachuk and Chabot and Stützle miss time, like what is Ottawa? They're going to be awful without those 3 guys if it's any length of time over the first 2 months of the season. So hopefully the initial are correct that it's not long term for them.
Yeah.
This it was discussed today or yesterday maybe at some GM's thing. They are going to address preseason next year, whether it's the amount of games or what. But this is the thing that I still need explained to me. You're playing hockey. Like, how is playing hockey this week different than playing hockey next week?
They're just nothing burger games. I think that's what they.
Yeah, but who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares? Like if you're, it makes zero sense. Like if you go out and half-ass it and fuck around during preseason and don't take it seriously, sure. If you do that in any game, you're probably going to get hurt. I don't know. We'll see. Like JT Miller's a good example. He sat out all of preseason so far here, for that exact reason. He has a slight injury. Like it's just something that's whatever. But it's mainly he just doesn't want to get hurt. He's proven but I mean, at some point you got to warm up. You got to get into the flow. You have to get some chemistry with your team, and that's what. It's not like the fucking 70s when like training camp was when guys started training. Like these guys have been training since they were 8 years old, right? Like,
well, I wonder if
they're not taking.
You know how goalies get like half a game. Like, oh, okay, we're gonna give Silovs half this game, and then Lankinen gets the back half. I wonder if they start doing that with some of the skaters too. Like, okay, Miller, you're gonna get the first period, and then we're gonna switch to this guy. I know there's gonna be limitations with the roster, but for me, preseason is a time to let your prospects and your young guys kind of prove themselves and see who is going to make the team. And now there's obviously rosters that are more set that have less spots available for prospects and things like that. But still, I think that's when you want those guys giving their all. And traditionally, like Winnipeg's been putting their entire roster out every single night. Like they're playing it like it's fucking game 40. And you don't want to send a bunch of 19-year-olds out against Scheifele and his absolute truck,
Well, I mean, traditionally it's always been like if you have 6 preseason games, you have 4 to dick around and then 2 for the team to practice as a team.
Start to mold, yeah.
Right. And this year it seems like guys are just like, they're just taking it a little further to where they're just like so worried. I think it's just an overreaction. And I honestly think, I don't know, it just doesn't make sense that a game this week is any different than a game next week.
I guess
unless
it's just
you play
takes. But we got a question here from Scoresburg, and I want to highlight this one. We'll get this one into. I've already started on StreamYard here, so we'll get into that when we start talking players. Let's move into the tips of the week, and mine is just my yearly reminder that don't panic. Like this first matchup, you're going to have guys that you drafted in the first, second, and third rounds, fourth rounds even, that turn up nothing but donuts. You're going to get a half dozen Krispy Kremes, and you're going to be like, fuck, I should drop Roman Josi. And it's not going to happen. You can't. You have to give them time. This is what happens every single year. People start blowing up the Discord, and, I'm not going to stop you guys from blowing up the Discord. Oh, what's going on with this guy? What's going on with that guy? But I just want you to know the answer is going to be the same. Just have patience. And I almost feel like I should have a boilerplate just ready to copy and paste into the Discord. Like, just give it a minute. All right. This is not a guy who
you might have to
go
copy and
82
paste
games
that several times and pin it everywhere.
So I just want you to, number one, just don't panic. It's a good time to go knock on doors, and I think that leads right into Raj's tip of the week here. So I want to leave that part for him.
Yeah, I mean, I thought you'd like my tip. My tip was listen to TJ because basically it's just like at this point. I mean, it's never bad advice when it comes to fantasy, at least. But never it's never any different than that. Like you draft your team, you spend all this time, all this focus, draft your team, and then like one game in, you're like, I gotta fucking blow it all up. Does anybody remember Connor McDavid last year?
Yeah.
Like, are you dropping Connor McDavid because he didn't score in the first 2 weeks? Like, nah, like some stuff is going to come around. The one thing I would say, though, is like keep your eyes open for other people. That's the best. Keep your eyes open for other people who are freaking out, though, because sometimes you will get that. You'll get like, maybe like a good example. I'm obviously going to go homer with my comments, but if, say, Jake DeBrusk doesn't score in the first game and somebody drops him, well, great, grab him. Like, he's going to get more than a one-game shot, and there's certain players that people are fickle on, but they're going to have a lengthy trial period. And the other thing I would say is take a look around and see who's on the IR right now. Like there's a lot of guys who would have gone through because they're on the IR. You have, I don't know, usually 2 slots, sometimes up to 4 or 5 IR slots, depending on the league. In the first week, take a look at who's injured and just throw them on your IR right now.
Yeah,
Right,
pick that
make
guy
the
up
decision.
before you do your streamer.
Yeah, and then you can get those IR slots. Your team is probably drafted fine since you probably drafted a few days ago. Use those IR slots for pickups. You know, a guy like Landeskog, a guy like Dakota Joshua, if you're in a categories league, like it's a perfect example. But just take a look at things that other people are not taking a look at right now. Like a lot of people are going to be like, who didn't score today? I got to drop them and reshape my whole life.
Yeah, I think we're building a nice layered advice here for the people out there and the people watching us right now, because mine's building off kind of what you're saying as well, Raj. Is just like you've got to be willing to work your league mates, and this kind of goes with what you were saying, but you have to look at, you know, monitor deployment, opportunity, time on ice, weekly schedules of those peripheral pieces, like the guys that are under rostered, right, in your leagues, and see how where they fit from your league scoring and how you can utilize them each week to maximize games played. I know we talk about that all the time. You know, I'm sure we're going to talk about that shortly with the schedule breakdown. But if you aren't willing to outwork your league mates, you know, somebody in your league is going to do it before, if you're not going to do it. And those are the guys that are going to be ahead of you in the standings, and be in a better position come playoff time to take home those championships that we're all chasing, right?
Yeah, streaming is the most important thing you can do. Like you look at every single year long, like we've been collecting this data for years. Raj did a study about it like a couple years ago in terms of like draft position and the correlation it had to winning. And it was really loose. Like there was no real advantage to drafting earlier. But on the other side, I did a study that showed that the more pickups you have, the more likely you are to win. I think draft position had like a 9% advantage to winning your league, or like 9% connection, but streaming had a 53% connection. So the teams that stream more, the teams that maximize their rosters, those are the ones that are going to be successful. Finding these off nights, maximizing your starts.
In that that study that I did, that was the other thing, right? It was like draft position actually it did have an effect, but like you said, it was like 10% sort of thing. It had like the middle of the draft is definitively better than on the turns. No question.
Strange. Yeah.
But if you don't play, you're not going to win, right? Like so the teams that won, and that's what my thing was actually looking at. I was analyzing winning teams, and they all had an advantage due to where they drafted. But the top 3 in every league were also in the top percentile of who made the most moves. And so it's interesting because the teams that made the most moves quite often also retained the most of their drafted players. So it was a team who drafted well and then utilized those streamer spots as much as possible. So you're making every possible move after drafting well. But you can't just draft a team and sit on it. That you won't win.
I had one more thing I wanted to add on top of Raj's here. A lot of people, like if you're going to be trying to make trades, it's one thing if somebody drops a Jake DeBrusk, you can go pick him up. But if you're going to be trying to buy low, just be careful because regardless, like there's still people out there, regardless of how bad a player is performing, who are still going to be valuing that player based on where they drafted them. So if you go and try and trade for somebody that was drafted in the 3rd round who's underperforming, and you offer like a 5th or a 6th round guy that you picked who's overperforming, they're not going to look at numbers. They're not going to look at anything. They're going to be like, why would I quote unquote move down 3 rounds in the draft? Like if I wanted player Y, why did I draft player X? So you're going to have to kind of fight that uphill battle a little bit on some. So just wait for that to kind of, it's still knock on doors, but just when that door gets open, just be ready because that's probably what's going to happen. All right, moving into the, go ahead.
I think just on the trade front too, it's like going back to what I was saying is just also know your league mates, right? Like if you have partial fandom in certain areas and you can leverage that in deals, right? You got to go for that, right? Because there'll be guys that were chasing homer picks, never got them, right? And you have an opportunity to capitalize on the just knowing your league mates, right? Especially if you're in a league that maybe you don't know them all personally, but you're just in a random league. But if you can get in the group chats and find out who likes what, exploiting the homers is a big one when you're looking to deal, especially early, I find, because the people will be thinking about who they missed in drafts, right, over the next 2 to 3 weeks, especially when you're getting maybe guys underperforming during that time period, right?
Oh yeah, the panic is going to be very real over the next couple weeks, guys. Get ready for it. Let's move into the schedule breakdown and start to talk about some of these streamers for this week. The games count per day, it's strange. So like the days that are off nights, I mean, obviously Sunday and Monday, there's no games on those days. Is that right? Yeah.
That's correct.
So for regular season, Sunday, Monday, there's no games. And it's really odd because you're looking at whether you're on the 5-hole website, looking at the game grid, or you're on OGAR or Daily Faceoff, like there's no filtering for preseason games. But Dobber Hockey, their schedule roster max, or the schedule planner, you can filter out the preseason games. So I'm looking at a big empty space. Sunday, Monday, there's nothing. Friday and Saturday, the only games that are available are those New Jersey Buffalo Global Series games that are happening in Prague. And then Tuesday, I guess the unofficial season start actually happens. And the games played leaders for this week are Buffalo and New Jersey, because they do have 2 more games once they get back to the States. And the only heavy nights are Thursday with 9 games, Saturday with 14. So the teams we're going to be talking about, especially this week, Vegas and Winnipeg both have 3 off nights. Those are the off night leaders. And then 2 off nights, you got Edmonton, Seattle, St. Louis, and Vancouver. In terms of worst schedules, like Washington only has 1 game. So those Andrew Mangiapanis, those Pierre-Luc Dubois, Dylan Strome, maybe even, depending on the depth of your league, like we're not hitting on those guys just yet. You want to save that. Put them on your watch list, not on your roster just yet. Easiest schedules. I really like Winnipeg here. Edmonton, Chicago, and Minnesota are their opponents of the week. So 3 games, 3 off nights. Love that Chicago game. Edmonton's going to be high flying. We'll see what happens there. And Minnesota, like I like their offense, Minnesota, but if you have skaters on Winnipeg, I don't know who's going to be their goalie. You know, Fleury is who, and Gustafsson, we don't know which Gustafsson we're going to get. So,
well, and they came out the gates. They came out the gate last year so poor too. Like, ugh. And
there's going to be, there's going to be, I know Buffalo's probably going to pop off. That's their thing. But yeah, I feel like a lot of teams are going to have rust, and a lot of teams are going to capitalize on it. So that's where we want to find that value. Is there any schedule that you guys particularly like going into this week, whether it's based on volume of games, volume of off nights, weak opponents, good schedules, anything like that?
I love my least favorite team, St. Louis.
Yeah.
Well, I love their schedule. They have 3 games done by Friday. So it gives you time for the week to stream somebody else for the weekend. And I'm not keeping anybody on St. Louis, so that's nice to get them in, get them out. Maybe think about someone who has either like a doubleheader on the weekend or has a good schedule next week. But their first 2 games are against Seattle, San Jose, so that's nice. And to be honest, I'm not sold on Vegas this year. I'm really not. I mean, they have run the roulette wheel, not to be punny, every year, and they have like cycled in so many players in their short life as a team. Like, I would love to see how many goalies they've had in the last 5 years. Like, it's crazy.
Leonard, Fleury, Hill, Thompson, and now they have Samsonov too. So it's a lot.
Yeah, right.
I feel
They're
like
cycling
I'm probably
in,
missing 1 or 2 too.
Yeah, But those are major goalies. They don't have a guy and they're cycling on other guys. That's their main guy, has been different like month by month almost. So I'm not sold on them. But yeah, I like St. Louis's schedule, and I love that they do have a couple of players that I'm not going to feel about dropping right after either, because I hate that when you pick somebody up and you're like, they're a streamer, but I love them now.
What about you, Craig? Any team schedules sticking out to you?
Yeah, I like what you said. Like, I like Winnipeg's schedule the most, and I think you have a couple of streaming options there, and their top 6. But I think I like Buffalo's schedule as well, because it allows you to get a couple of their top 6 guys that are lowly owned currently right now. Get a couple extra games played in the Friday, Saturday, then drop whoever you've grabbed, and then tap into your suggested Vegas, Winnipeg, those top schedules in terms of off nights. So you can potentially tack on, especially if you're facing the Stützle injury, even the Tkachuk injury, you can probably maybe tack on 5 extra games this week right off the jump. At least if those guys are not going to play this week coming up. Right?
How are you tackling that one? Are you, like, if you were to stream somebody from Buffalo, are you dropping them right after those 2 days and then hopping on somebody else for the rest of the week? It kind of sounded like you were saying something like that.
Yeah, that's how I would approach it, because really, if you, like, for me, like, I've got a couple of shares of Tkachuk, I've got a couple of shares of Stützle. So what I've done is I put them on IR plus already, and I've put a claim in for a Buffalo guy or a New Jersey guy. And even if they're ruled back in for the Ottawa games, I get those extra 2 games for Friday, Saturday. If I have to drop them to activate the Ottawa player, whether that's Tkachuk or Stützle, I can easily do that. If Tkachuk or Stützle are missing more time in week 1 with the extended week, I can then drop whoever I've picked up from New Jersey or Buffalo and look to target somebody from Vegas or Winnipeg with the off night. I can fit them into schedule, right? With potentially Tkachuk and Stützle out. Like, that's what I would do if I was the manager facing that situation. Yeah, you're hoping for the best with the Stützle or a Tkachuk manager, hoping they're coming back for Ottawa's opening schedule. But if they're not, at least you have a pathway to maximize some games played in your week 1 matchup.
There you go. Yeah, I have Matt Boldy right now that I would love to swap in, but there's nothing. Like, I'm looking at, especially this the Content Creators League for Fantasy Puck. There's nothing available. Like, Brennan Dillon is the best New Jersey Devil, and I think Owen Power maybe there's nothing, dude. Even like Zach Benson is owned at this point.
That draft just wrapped, and that was Mike Amato and Jason Chen's new Sleepers and Keepers pro league with some of their listeners and 7 of us, quote unquote, pros. And it's a 16-team leaguer, and I was just looking at the waiver, and it's literally not good luck streaming in that league.
Yeah, those big leagues are tough. All right, I want to tap onto some of these worst schedules. We talked about Washington. They only have 1 game, and it's not even on an off night. The harder schedules, Nashville, they've got 2 games, no off nights. They're playing Dallas and Detroit. So Dallas, really tough opponent. Detroit kind of somewhere in the middle. Pittsburgh's got 3 games, 1 off night. They're playing the Rangers, the Red Wings, and Toronto. So tough run for Jari.
Maybe you don't want Jari.
Yeah. Calgary. Calgary is going to be punching up a lot of the year, but they got 3 games, 2 off nights. So it's a good schedule on paper, but your opponents like Vancouver, Philadelphia, Edmonton, those are going to be tougher ones. So those are games that they might not win, but I could see being like wide open in terms of goal scoring. Vancouver, I don't know who their goalie's going to be. We don't know how they're going to perform, how the defense is going to be in front of them. Philadelphia, literally a coin toss in terms of what game you're going to get out of Philly any given night. And Edmonton's all offense. So if you catch them going the other way, things could really turn for Calgary. And you know they're going to get up for a Battle of Alberta. Chicago, again, they're going to be punching up all year, but this is a 3-game, 2 off-night schedule. They're playing Utah, Winnipeg, Edmonton. This is a road trip for them, so they're going to be on the road playing tough opponents all week. So tough to be a Mrazek owner too. But I don't know. Like, I don't hate Chicago in terms of what's available there. There's a lot of people to kind of, because it is one of those like icky teams. But guys like Bertuzzi are 26% owned, Teravainen 40. There's options out there.
You have to think they're going to be marginally better with some of their additions this year. Like I know they're not top end additions, but at least it gives Bedard some peripheral scoring around him, and perhaps with a healthier Seth Jones, you're going to have something in front of Mrazek where Mrazek doesn't have to do 360s to, stop it from being 6'5" every night.
How do you guys feel about Taylor Hall as a swing?
Yeah.
We know the skill is
rostered,
skill is there, but 5 years ago. But he's still going to be a streaming option because you have to think they're going to work him into their top 6 in that top power play, right? Like,
he's played less than anybody in the last few years.
Well,
he went from being MVP to not playing hockey anymore, and that's the problem. Like, you just like, yeah, when he played, he was MVP, but then you're like, that was also, what was it, 2019?
A bit like Landeskog there.
His give a shit level very evident all over when he plays. Like, it's like, it varies by game, right?
Yeah. You'd love to think that, like, playing with a guy like Bedard's like, shit, I'll try. I'll try this season.
You'd think that.
But I met Taylor Hall in a hotel in Vancouver once, and I don't think he has that same attitude. I think he would be like, fuck this kid. I don't give a shit. I'm rich already.
He probably still thinks he's better than him. Still.
Yeah, probably. How many MVPs you got?
Yeah. So.
All right, moving into the waiver wire segment. We talked about the teams to target. Let's get into the streams to target. I'm going to lead off with my stream of the week, and it's going to be Victor Olofsson. Vegas, I love their schedule. They're looking at Colorado, St. Louis, Anaheim. So it's 3 off nights. Colorado, St. Louis, those are going to be kind of, run them down kind of games. But Olofsson's top line, top power play with Eichel, they used to play together in Buffalo. So this chemistry is back. There's already that existing rapport. The last time he did play with Eichel was in 19 and 20, 20 and 21. Olofsson put up a 55-point pace over those 2 seasons. Eichel was hurt for a lot of 2021. So looking at just 19-20, when they played together the most, Olofsson was on a 64-point pace. With half of that being power play points. Like, he is a power play merchant. So if he can get some of that magic back, a little bit of that chemistry back with Eichel, I think there's a lot of value in straight up picking up Olofsson off the waiver wire. He's 5% rostered right now. He's got a great schedule this week, a great time to kind of try it out, see what the buzz is about. Barbashev, the same thing, except for power play 1. He's on the top line with Eichel and Olofsson. He's 18%, gives you a little bit of dual eligibility as a center and left wing. 2 hits a game, so if you're in one of those kinds of leagues, he does give you a little bit of extra value. But I don't know, man. Like, what do you Raj, you were saying you don't buy into Vegas at all. Like, is there still value there for streamers like this?
100%. I just don't think they're going to be like, Vegas has been crazy good, like, the whole time they've existed. And it just, I don't know. To me, they've been just toying with things too much. Like, most of this team wasn't there 2 years ago. So I don't know. I just don't feel good as a team about Vegas, but I think that leaves a lot of room for streamers. They have some guys who are available, like a guy like Barbashev with all the hits. I always like picking up a guy like that who's dual eligible, is going to get you several hits.
There's a good floor there, yeah.
Yeah, potentially a 20-goal scorer type of guy. Like, there are those kind of guys there, for sure. Just all I meant is just as a whole team, I just think, which makes me not want their goalies, the fact that their goalies are not set in stone. Their team may suck. I don't know. They may. It's just such a question mark team. I hate question mark teams.
I think it's a good team to stream from because you have the peripheral pieces around their top 3 centers, right? And
There's
you know that they're going to roll those top 3 lines. You know they're going to roll both power plays. That's how they've operated the last on pretty much since they've existed. So you're going to get decent floor in terms of time on ice, decent deployment from those peripheral guys. It just seems to me over the last couple of years, and I kind of agree with Raj, now that you've kind of taken the higher end skill off the wing away from the centers and you've plugged in a guy like Hurdle, my question is that peripheral scoring going to be at the same level, right? Like you're not drafting an Olofsson, a Barbashev, a Waugh, uh, the Doroff guy. You're not drafting them.
Yeah.
You might not even be drafting them depending on the depth of your league. With the same when you had Marchessault there, when you had a healthy Mark Stone, because who the hell knows what he's going to be? The guy's got a robot back and a robot ankle, and who knows if he can even play 40 games. But like, I think it's a good team to stream when they have an opportunistic schedule like this because of how they roll their lines. So at least you're going to get a good floor of time on ice and deployment, right?
I love thinking about Mark Stone as a cyborg, right?
with playing with
Samantha, you will be mine.
Like playing with solid centermen, right? Like I like the Hurdle edition. I don't see how he's not the 2C over Carlson, but I think their centers are all interchangeable other than Eichel, right?
It's a little bit scary seeing center depth like that because then you think that Cassidy might want to roll lines. And while that brings down the ceiling of guys like Eichel, it also brings up the ceiling of guys like Holtz, Dorofeyev, Barbashev, and like these wingers who, were afterthoughts who could be seeing,
Like
I don't know.
They don't have a left
winger.
winger. They don't have a left winger who should be on any team. Like
this is true.
Like they're like they don't even have someone who should be in the top 6 on their left wing right now. Like their wingers are I don't know, losing Marchessault. I think that's the one thing that really they kind of never gave him credit. I mean, they thought he was good. He was there for a while. He obviously did great and all that, but I don't think he ever got the credit he deserved. He was like,
he was always
huge
great,
part of that. Huge part.
Riley
of that team.
Smith too. Like their wingers are gone. Pacioretty for a time was there. It's what it is. Who else do you guys like in Vegas before we move on to Winnipeg? Is there anybody else worth talking about? Like we talked about some of these wingers, Dorofeyev and Alexander Holtz, even both really widely available, but probably ones you're looking at in real deep leagues. For me, Olofsson kind of takes the cake there.
Yeah, I think that's the best target, at least for this week, is if you want a guy to just pick up and stream for the entirety of the week, is Olofsson to see what happens, right? Like you kind of know what Barbashev is. He's going to have like these little sneaky hot and cold streaks. I like the floor for the hits if you need to chase hits, but there could be, and it could be week 1 where he does absolutely nothing from a scoring perspective, right? I don't know how owned Mark Stone is, but maybe just go check on him because if he is partially robotic, maybe he can actually stay healthy for longer than 2 weeks, right?
Yeah,
we know he can
score.
Pharmaceutical.
He has metal legs. He does have metal legs. I mean, if you're in a bangers league, there are contenders there for sure.
Kolasar,
You've always got
for sure.
Yeah. Kolasar is the man.
Yeah.
Like if you can get close to a 300 hit guy on your right wing on off nights, that's like you're gonna win hits that week.
Haig's a banger.
That's about it.
McNabb's a banger.
I was gonna say McNabb is a good banger category guy too, right?
Absolutely. All right, moving to Winnipeg. I think Velarde should kind of marquee the streamer talk here. Top line, top power play. So
he
very
should be
much
more in my opinion,
40%. I think the injury risk is a real thing. But I agree with you. Like top line, top power play in Winnipeg. How is he leaving draft season at only 40% rostered with a substantial first matchup like he has right now? Like it's one of the best schedules of the week, and just the deployment, like you can't beat that deployment. So his injury concern is one thing, but is he going to get hurt in the first couple of weeks? Like the law of averages says probably not. It's going to happen, but will it happen this week? We don't know. I don't know. I really like it. Like he could be somebody that could wind up as a longer term hold. So this is like, it's between him and Olofsson. There's arguments for both I think, in terms of who my streamer of the week would be. But top line, top power play for both. There's a lot to like here.
Yeah, and looking at the roster right now, I'm wondering if this is the first time ever where Hellebuck's stock is going to go down. Because this is a one-line team if I've ever seen it.
Wait, you don't like Nemestikov as your 2C?
I love Lowry as a 3C. I love Lowry as a 3C.
I was just about to say, if you got face-offs, you want to grab Lowry for sure. He's
but
all major.
That's line 2 is sketchy. Like Ehlers, we've wanted to be good and has potential, but I don't know if he can drag along Nemestikov and Perfetti. I have a feeling Lowry might be moving up real quick.
If that's the biggest question on this roster is whether or not Nemestikov can play center. If he can, like, that works out in a huge way. Number one, Nemestikov becomes relevant, and two, the second line becomes the second line, because right now you're right, it's a top line and 3 third lines. So, but that Lowry line is such a shutdown line. Like, him and Appleton are huge. Their time on ice is astronomical. They might as well be the second line.
That's true. That's true.
He'll play a lot of
Niederreiter's
minutes.
not bad.
Yeah.
You always
And that defense, like, this is a defense that's stuck together
Niederreiter,
for a while.
right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Outside of Velarde, though, like, who's worth streaming? Like, would you guys take a chance on Nemestikov or Perfetti if Velarde's already taken? Like, which would you lean towards?
Like, to Roger's point,
Perfetti.
Perfetti is where I was going. Perfetti's kind of like your 1B Ehlers. Everybody wants him to be good too, and he just hasn't taken that offensive step just yet. He's younger for sure, but again, he's not playing with a legitimate 2C, and Ehlers always becomes Ehlers for whatever reason, whether that's lack of deployment or not on the top power play. I think that kind of holds him back, but I would go Perfetti as well. I would agree with Raj on that. At least you have some top end opportunity for scoring, right? As a peripheral guy, he's only 14% owned, I believe. I checked it before we jumped on.
Yeah, this is another heavy team too. So, like, if you're in a Cats league, there's a lot to like here. Neil Pionk, 42% rostered. He bangs around quite a lot. Then Dylan DeMello is another big banger. Lowry's no stranger to hitting it up, and Niederreiter too. Niederreiter bangs. A lot of bangs on this team. Lots and lots of bangs. Even Appleton. Appleton bangs a lot too.
Yeah.
That's your check-in line.
It's like, this is like a Islanders 2.0 team to me.
Oh, don't say that. Ugh.
Yeah, that's gross. Take it back.
That's gross.
It's Barzal and a sea of mediocrity.
All right, next team I'm looking at here, guys, is Calgary, which is a bit of a clumsy team to be streaming from. They play on Wednesday, and then their next off night, like, yes, they play on Saturday, but, like, I was trying to think, like, unless you have Uyghur or Kadri, I guess, like, who are you really benching for a Calgary Flame? You know what I mean? So, like, maybe the only 2 games you get out of them are Wednesday and Sunday, and that's such a large spread. Do you hold, or do you flip to somebody who kind of has some Thursday, Friday action? So Calgary, while they're a clumsy team, there's still some options here. But I don't know, like, what would you guys do looking at Calgary?
Look, if you can't get somebody on their PP, I would stay away from it, and almost everybody on their PP1 is heavily owned. Like, I'm just checking now, almost everybody's almost 50%, but if you could just go check on Kuzmenko, like, maybe you take a flyer on him. At least you know he's going to shoot, right? Right now he's projected to play with Kadri and Sharon Govich on that top line, and he's projected to be on that power play one. Huberdeau's probably out there. I know he's gone late in almost every draft I've been in. Guys taking flyers on him, but, like, you're most likely not going to find a Sharon Govich, a Uyghur, or a Kadri available. Like, a Backlund is good for faceoffs and shots on goal, but he's not going to do much else.
There's guys here that like have
And
done it in the
I
past. That's worth.
he's a stalwart like Coleman. We love
Yeah.
Coleman, right? But I don't know how he's going to be widely owned as well.
Yeah, Coleman's 68%. Like there's long shot swings you can make in like Huberdeau and Mantha, guys who have done it before, and we know it's in there somewhere. But I don't know. Calgary is such a reclamation project. Like they just took a bunch of guys and they're hoping they bounce back at this point. But Nathan in the chat here, our guy, big popsicle man. Like I want so badly
I was just
to
gonna bring him up because he was getting some hype in week 1 of preseason. They were running him at 1C and Kadri at 2C.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
and he does.
I don't know.
A ton, right?
I have no idea what their lines look like. That's another thing is every time they play a game, their lines are different. Huberdeau and Mantha have been sticking together, but I'm seeing them on line 1, 2, 3, all over the place. So I don't know if Pospisil is going to play line 1, if it's Kadri, if it's Backlund. Honestly, they're all over the place. So this, for me, just watch the time on ice.
Popsicle's going to get real pissed off if he's playing checking responsibilities with Mantha and Huberdeau, according to Daily Faceoff right now. That's their third line.
There's no Huberdeau is not on a checking line of any kind.
No.
But I mean, having said that, like in our notes when we have our show notes, I just wrote fuck Calgary or whatever I put in the notes. But there's actually like, if we're talking streamers, Huberdeau scored 100 points a couple years ago. He's not a piece of shit. He's not. You can accidentally get 60 points. You can't accidentally get back-to-back 100-point seasons.
Look, if
he's got some skill.
If we agree that Velarde should be more rostered at 40%, Huberdeau probably should be more rostered than 30% to roster point, right?
Like I'm not like a couple years ago when I took him in the first round and he got 4 points or whatever he got. But if you're getting him in like the 15th, 16th round, and that's fine. I wouldn't mind Sharon Govich. He's top line, top power play. And my hot take is I'm all in on Kuzmenko. I'm all in. The problem
master, yeah.
The problem is Rick Tocchet. There's a reason Bo Horvat was leading the league in scoring and got traded. Kuzmenko was a 39-goal scorer, couldn't score on his team. Elias Pettersson dropped 20 points in a season. It's right.
Here's a question from Score. Also reminded me that he asked about Mishkov. Where would you guys take Huberdeau in a points-only draft? Is that let's say it goes 16 rounds, 12 teams. Does he make it to the waiver wire, or is he kind of like a last-round pick? I feel like you're not in a real danger of getting sniped on him. Like, you can make that your last-round pick.
I don't know about you guys, but I've seen him go in the last 2 rounds in almost every draft I've been in. The only draft he went earlier in is that draft I was doing tonight, but that was a much, much deeper draft than a 12-teamer or a 10-teamer.
He's 30% rostered on Yahoo. So 70% of drafts, he's straight up not getting drafted. So I honestly think, like, if you want to take a swing on Huberdeau, you could probably pick him up, and you could probably make it your whole draft without him and still get him. Yeah. But if you want to make sure you get him last round pick,
I agree with Rod.
I'm saying last.
He's going to walk ass backwards into a minimum 60 points. He's going to get PP1. He's going to get top 6 deployment. Maybe he doesn't get 20 minutes time on ice, but I don't see how he doesn't at least outperform what he did last year. What do you have, like 50 points, 47 points, something like that last year,
hit
right?
12 goals last year.
And I got Coleman for more points, I'll tell you. And that's not saying that either of them are going to be a 60-point player. I just think Coleman's going to get more.
I just think
a weird one this year.
It just depends who gets the deployment, like you said, Tej, right? Like, where's that going to go, right? And to Roger's point, like, what's Tocchet going to do with all these pieces? And clearly he trusted Coleman last year over Huberdeau because Coleman's production went up in the second half because his time on ice went up and his power play deployment went up. And you saw Coleman be really productive in the second half of last year. So if that maintains, I totally agree with you for sure.
I'd love to see it. Coleman's such a fun guy to root for. Moving on to Edmonton here. There's not much in the way of availability, right? Like even Skinner and Arvidsson are the worst kept sleeper secrets out of the draft. And Skinner's 82% rostered. Arvidsson's 50% rostered. Outside of that, there's nobody that I'm interested in whatsoever below 50%.
The Skin Man is 82% rostered.
Wow. Yes, and it's been a few years since he's even sniffed above 50, I think. Like back in, I think maybe 1 year when he was good in Buffalo, he went for it. But, just being at Edmonton, being just within distance of Draisaitl and McDavid, he's 82% rostered.
Well, he's a true cicada. Like he pops up for a tight 40 once every 5 years or something.
Yeah,
and then disappears. But dude, you're either with McDavid or Draisaitl, and he has zero purpose outside of the top six. So it's
both of them
you're in or you're out.
Both of them are projected to be with Draisaitl on that second line. So.
Yeah. I think that changes pretty quick because I think Skinner's got the legs to hang with McDavid, and I wonder if they make that change. Like Ryan Nugent-Hopkins and Draisaitl have a pretty good rapport with each other that I think that might be the first switch that we see. So I get it. I understand why people have been taking Skinner, and I think it'll pay off in the end because I do think that RNH winds up as the 2 left wing. Skinner moves up.
But we all do agree it's consensus unless there's injury. Neither of them are sniffing PP1, like not a chance.
Not even close. No. But what's nice is McDavid and Draisaitl will probably play 100% of all power plays. So Arvidsson and Skinner will get some power play exposure to those guys.
Yeah.
It just won't be a ton. Seattle. Anybody that isn't Jared McCann, Vince Dunn, or Brandon Montour is 25% or lower rostered percentage. So you could take any one of these guys that you wanted. The Seattle Streamers, man, like this is just a year-long tradition. I'm a big fan of OBJ this year. Oliver Bjorkstrand, I think Beniers is somebody worth checking out too. But personally, I take OBJ over Beniers. I think there's a lot to go on that. So I see you got some stuff here. Why don't you tell me about Tolvanen, man?
I love him very much.
He
hits like
he's like a mini Tippett,
business. Well, I call him Little Ovi because he's last year he had 210 hits. Like he gets a decent amount of blocks. He gets a couple of hits a game. The guy can score. He's dual eligible. He shoots. Seattle's a pretty spread out team, and he doesn't get a ton of ice time, but his ice time has gone up from like 12 to 15 minutes. And he's at the spot right now where people still like him. They still think he can be good. And it comes down to this season kind of for him because right now he's still a young-ish dude with some promise. So we're talking streamers. I like him. Again, the dual eligibility is huge for sliding him in and out of the lineup when he's a streamer. And if you include hits and blocks and shots, he's going to get you something. Like he's not going to leave the score sheet blank.
Now, this is a team that's like the flip mirror image of Vegas. Like there's so much action happening on the wings relative to the centers. Like Beniers, Stevenson, Shane Wright down the middle. Tolvanen can get usurped by Jaden Schwartz at any point. Burakovsky, Eberle, Bjorkstrand is your right wings. Any single one of them can be a top line right wing, And I don't know how Bylsma is going to deploy these guys just yet, but a top 9 looking like that, those lines are pretty evenly spread. I wonder if he's going to roll lines, roll power plays. This is just a team that's built for it. So
last year that's exactly what they did. They rolled lines, They rolled power plays. You could stream essentially anybody at any time of the peripheral guys on that team when there was a good schedule. Like you said, if it's not Montour, Dunn, or Jerry, Most of them are going to be available week in and week out, and you can kind of plug and play. I do agree with you. Another guy kind of like an Ehlers, everybody wants him to be good. I've always liked Bjorkstrand. Maybe he does take a step if Beniers can take a step this year as well. But again, if they're rolling lines, 16, 17 minutes time on ice,
It's not going to
cut. It's hard to take a step if you ain't getting, real line one deployment.
Well, I'll tell you, like, rolling lines might have been what got Hackstall fired. So I wonder if Bylsma, wants to make it a point to do things differently than the old boss, right? But with a roster made out like this, you're almost forced to roll lines. I'd love to see it go top heavy, and there is an opportunity for Bylsma to do something different with this roster than has been done in the past, which has gotten coaches fired. So I wouldn't blame him for wanting to try something different. And I think I'm just creating a narrative here to convince myself that it might happen.
They have 9 pretty rad forwards right now. 9 amazing, fourth.
And you only need 8 to have 2 power plays. So it makes sense. It really does to split them.
Daily shows that they're going to, it's going to be split. They're all over the place, right?
I just don't know what split means, though, because I don't know how, how you'd make 3 better forwards than 3 other forwards. I think it's you take any of those 9 and you just Yahtzee, roll the die and just throw them in, and you're getting 2 decent-ish power plays and finishing 24th in the league. That's what's happening.
St. Louis with a pretty decent schedule here. They have Tuesday against Seattle, Thursday against San Jose, Friday against Vegas. Am I reading the right one? Yeah, Seattle.
Yes.
There we go.
You're reading the right
man.
one.
So even that Thursday game that has 9 games is not a super heavy night, so you might be able to actually get all 3 games out of them. I love Justin Falk here. This is one of, I think, maybe the sneakiest D picks of the year. I got sniped by Nate from Apples and Chinos in this most recent draft. I really wanted him that round, and I think this it was a perfect format for it. If you're looking at bangs, Justin Falk will give you that. He is top power play, but for what it's worth, no Seattle defenseman has gotten more than 20 power play points since Pietrangelo in 1920. And then after that, it was Krug with 19 power play points in 21-22. And before that, no St. Louis D has gotten more than 14 power play points. So the ceiling isn't super high for somebody like a Justin Falk, but the floor is super sweet when it comes to the bangs. All the little things that you're going to get. So I wouldn't be surprised if we get a 35, 40 point guy, maybe even 45 if things click right, and just awesome peripherals. So I love Justin Falk
under rostered. Criminally under
37% rostered Justin Falk here.
Go and get him if he's there, because there's no way he have a better value than your 4th D. Now I guarantee it.
How many other top power play guys are out on your waiver wire right now? So
Boquist maybe, but is that even going to hold?
I would take Justin Falk over Boquist.
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah, over Brant Clark even. I think I would probably take Falk here. I like Jake Neighbors as well. Lots of goals, lots of shots, lots of hits. Not a bunch of points, but it's a 2-to-1 ratio, goals to assists. So you're going to get points from this guy. He's top line, top power play. He's 26% rostered, and you're getting the flexibility of left wing, right wing. So I think Jake Neighbors is a good look. Raj, you got a guy here that, man, you've been talking about this dude for years.
Well, he's the old Jake Neighbors.
He's your new Pavelski.
Well, not quite. He's not going to threaten for 40 goals, I don't think, but he's going to get you hits for sure. And he's just around. He's center, left wing. He's going to be top 6. He's going to probably be getting power play 1 time. He's just Braden Shen. He's a Shen. He's going to show up with some stats. And depending where you're at in what you're streaming for, if you need something with probably points and definitely peripherals, Braden Shen is a no-brainer. especially given their schedule. And
Yeah,
since
I like
TJ
what you
already
said
took
earlier.
Neighbors.
Like done by Friday, you can still get another Sunday streamer. So lots. Like if you went Buffalo or New Jersey, then St. Louis, then a Sunday streamer, right there you're getting 2, 3, 6 games from 3 acquisitions.
And like just going back to Neighbors first, keeps that deployment. He's still with line one power play over the first month of the season. Again, another criminally under rostered guy right now because dual eligibility, tons of shots.
So I got a question for you guys. So let's take schedule out of it. Let's say everybody played 3 games, 3 off nights. You got Olofsson, Velarde, Neighbors. Who would be your first pick, your second pick, your third pick? Neighbors is left wing, right wing. I think Olofsson's left wing only, and Velarde's center right wing. So that definitely skews things a little bit. Let's say they all play Chicago 3 times too. So there's no like matchup moving, right? I think Neighbors might be my number 1.
I like Neighbors, but if you do put in the schedule, I like Neighbors even more. But I do like Neighbors right up there for sure. And the left wing, right wing I love that.
It's huge.
I'm gonna throw you a curveball. I'm gonna go Velarde, Neighbors, and Shen. I don't trust Olofsson. I don't. The guy played 15 minutes a night when he was in Buffalo. Yes, okay, he could finish, but I just don't see his role changing from what it was a few years ago in Buffalo. Maybe in the first couple of weeks to see what he can do. But
they don't have a single left wing that's better than him.
But a lot of leagues right now have those peripherals, the hits or face-offs. I like Rogers, swing on Shen. Like he does run into a hot streak. Maybe he runs hot right out the gate, right? And he tends to get power play time even when he's not on that top unit, right? He bangs, right? Maybe he doesn't shoot as much as an Olofsson would, but I think he gives you depth.
There's a good floor there
of scoring, right? There's a good floor.
Absolutely.
You know what he is. I think in week 1, Olofsson is a solid. Let's see what happens. But if you're looking for floor guys, I would put Shen in there over Olofsson with Velarde and Neighbors for sure.
I'll give you that, man. I dig it. Vancouver, the last team that we're going to talk about here in terms of team streams. Jake DeBrusk is worth going to check. This is a guy 66% rostered, so 1 out of every 3 leagues does not have Jake DeBrusk rostered right now. Left wing, right wing, top 6, top power play, decent hits, decent shots, good exposure. I'm not sold that the ceiling has changed since his time in Boston. He's always been top 6. He's been getting intermittent top power play time with Boston. Maybe something that's a little more consistent in Vancouver could move his ceiling a little bit, but I don't think we're seeing like a 70-point guy out of nowhere, right? So I think there is a little bit of overhype on somebody like Jake DeBrusk, but I also think he's a decent value that could wind up in like the 55, 60-point range.
I'm just going to let Raj talk because this is his, but I just want to know if they're going to finally release this Braun at some point. Give the man an opportunity to more than 12 minutes a night. That's all I want.
Well, these 2 guys, DeBrusk and Sprong, are what we all have our hopes hung on right now out here. But I think...
And Heinen. Don't forget Danton Heinen.
I already did. I did long ago. He might be fine to have around, I guess. But like DeBrusk and Sprong, they are bringing in with the intent of being the scoring guys to put the team over the edge. The one thing that they're replacing, I think they've done a really smart thing, is last year they brought in Lindholm, who I love. I've owned Lindholm in every league for the last 10 years, basically. And I love him, and he's a great player, but he was not... Like, you have JT Miller and you have Elias Pettersson, who are supposedly 2 top 10-ish centers in the league, and then you bring in a really good other center who's a top-line center. That makes 0 sense. So he was great for the team, but he made no sense on the team, whereas DeBrusk and Sprong, their jobs are DeBrusk's job is to come in, get the puck, and try to capitalize on playing with some quality top 10 players. Sprong, same thing, but I think with Sprong, what's different, he's only 6% owned, so he's there. He's right wing, which is traditionally a scarce spot, but he's starting with PD and DeBrusk, and if not, he's going to be with Miller and Besser. And if not, he's basically out of the league. And that's the one thing I like about Sprong is like he is a legit goal scorer, and he's looked good here, and he's looked good on third lines around the league in the past. But he has not played with like a guy like JT Miller or Prime Pedersen. So I think we're gonna know this week if Sprong's worth anything. So I think in terms of a streamer given Vancouver's schedule, I think Sprong as a guy you can get is worth picking up, and do not get attached if he doesn't. Like I'm talking about guys who don't score in the first week, don't panic. He's a day by day kind of pickup for sure.
All right, we still have this Mishkov question here from Scoresburg. Do we think that Mishkov gets the true Torts treatment this year? I don't think anybody is above the Torts treatment. We've seen Konechny get the press box. We've seen Couturier get the press box. So Mishkov is probably going to get put up there. It's almost like you have to earn your dues. Like it's a rite of passage as a Philadelphia Flyer at this day and age. So if he doesn't, I think he's going to start getting like kind of chirped from the rest of the team. I think there's a certain amount of it there. I wonder if he's going to start to be okay with a little more flash and bang in the sphere, I guess, like, because Mishkov he's going to produce. And I think that's going to trump any defensive deficiencies that he might have. So I wonder, I do think he's going to get benched at some point. So I'm not like you can't bet the under on one game in the press box, right? So there's going to be a certain level of torts that he has to endure. But I also think that maybe we see a little bit of a different torts. But you can't bet on that either. So I honestly can't tell you one way or another. So if I don't think he's getting demoted. I don't think he's going to be in the press box for like 10 games or anything. He might get one or two if he screws up twice. So I don't know. I don't think it's going to be a huge thing. People are kind of overplaying this Mishkov bit.
Yeah,
Torts.
It's nonsense. Yeah. Torts is Torts. There's no question about it. But he's not a fool. Look at who did he win the Stanley Cup with? The youngest Stanley Cup winning team ever, right? Like he won it with a young batch of guys who didn't know what they were doing. He can be good for that. He has like the old man reputation, and rightfully so, because he does that too. But he isn't a fool. Like he's not a fool. And that's the one thing I'll say. Like, we had him in Vancouver, and he's literally the worst coach we've ever had in this city for this team. But I do not buy into Torts being an old, washed-up dinosaur piece of crap. I don't believe so. I think he said a lot of things I disagree with and had a few moves I disagree with. But I do think he's a little smarter than he gets credit for. And I'm just going to say a little smarter. I'm not saying he's a wonderful person or super genius, but I don't think he is the person that his reputation is exactly.
Yeah, and I think Tej, you talked about it too. I think the Flyers struggled, especially on the power play last year. And to Roger's point, idiot. Like this score, he can finish. You need him out there for that to improve, and for the team to improve overall. The power play has to be better this year, right? Like it can't be the steaming pile of feces that it was last year, or
the year before,
and the year before that. Like it's got to be at least middle of the league for them to make any headway in the conference. It has
Yeah.
to be. I know you
I
guys
think
have the gigantic backup goalie, but like him and the Viking, they can't do anything. The team can't score. Like,
There's going to be a lot that I think Torts is going to be able to overlook with whatever offense he can bring. So if he does wind up, inflating the power play to a certain degree, if he gives up a 3-on-1, like, I don't think that's where Konechny got benched for exactly that 2 years ago. I don't think Mishkov gets benched for that.
look,
So,
I know it's only preseason, but he's looked nasty.
2 points per
in
game, baby.
preseason.
Yeah.
Nasty.
No, I'm stoked. It's going to be great. We're running a little long tonight, so I'm going to cut this 0G segment down a little bit. You guys parse through this list as well and see if there's any back-to-backs that you like. I wanted to say one thing on the Buffalo, New Jersey back-to-back that'll be happening in Prague. There's two ways this could go. Markstrom could very well get both games because that's who Markstrom is, and I wonder if Keefe is curious to see what Allen looks like in actual game action. So I don't know if Markstrom is going to get both or if Allen is somebody that is worth keeping an eye on, because I don't think you can make that pickup right now because there is a very real world where Markstrom gets both those games, because they do have like 3 days in between where he can, rest up or whatever. So, but Allen's 7% rostered, and this is going to be one of those things that you are paying attention to as the coach makes those announcements, if he makes those announcements. So keep on your toes if you're running 0G and looking at Allen. There's not much here that I like. Like maybe Casey DeSmith and Dallas's back-to-back, New York Islanders and Seattle. If DeSmith gets one of those, I might take a chance there. If Picard gets the Chicago front half of a back-to-back for Edmonton, that's worth looking at, I guess. Fedotov versus Calgary, if he winds up getting that. Like if they put Ersson out there for Vancouver, Fedotov in Calgary, that could be a game worth checking into. I don't know. Is there anything you guys dig in terms of 0G pickups this week?
Yeah, I think you hit them all right. Like, I don't mind Wolf and Vladar, or whoever gets Philly, but like that game could just be a complete gong show. It could end up like 6-5 or something like that easily. So like, I like the ones that you pointed out. The DeSmith one for me is probably the top one if I'm looking to stream a goalie start. But yeah, I don't really, the rest of it's kind of gross, to be honest.
Cali Clang doesn't even exist in Yahoo, so the San Jose Vegas back-to-back, like whoever gets San Jose, if it's Cali Clang and he doesn't exist in Yahoo's database yet, then I guess you're screwed. So we'll see. But guys, it's great to be back.
I think you're fine. I think you're fine with that, though.
Yeah, missing out on a Cali Clang stream, you're going to be all right.
I just don't think you should be streaming San Jose goalies to begin with is not something you want to do, especially
I wonder
to
how
start
many
the season.
emails. Like, do you really think Yahoo's going to get an email about that? Maybe there's a Dynasty League, but yeah.
God, no. I hope not.
Somebody
I can't believe I missed out on my Cali Clang stream. Nah, you'll be all right.
Well,
you'll be all right.
I mean, I know we're trying to wrap, but like, why are you drafting a goalie or just picking up a goalie in the week one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you did go 0G, you should be set up in terms of like your last few picks or however you went 0G.
Tej, in that
hopefully
deep
be
league,
set
I
up.
took Ersson and Fedotov in the my last two picks. And so,
Yikes. Rolling a tandem and 0G.
there you go.
You just love flirting with risk. All right.
Hey,
That
Ingram
is-
earlier. I took Ingram earlier as something
All right,
stable.
all right.
So
But that is going to be it for the first in-season content that we're bringing you. I don't know if we're going to call it weekend one or week one preview, matchup one preview, but thanks for hanging out with us. To those of you that hung out in YouTube, Paraturan, Scoresburg, our buddy Mr. Ho Travels, lots of guys, Nathan Graham hanging out here, man. Thanks for keeping the chat rolling for us, and we'll catch you guys next time. If you want to get in touch with us in the meantime, we're at FHF Hockey on Twitter. Craig, your handle is?
Kreger, FHFH.
There you go. Raj? Mike
can't-
Rogerson,
Mike
WTF,
Rogerson,
I think it is.
WTF. Yes,
There it
Mike
is.
Rogerson, WTF.
If you guys want to chirp those guys personally, we're also in the Discord, and 2,500 other people closing in on 600. So if you want to get in there and talk with a bunch of fantasy hockey GMs about trades, drops, sit starts, all sorts of stuff. Feel free to jump in the Fantasy Hockey Discord and check us out here on YouTube and yada, yada, yada. We'll catch you next time, guys. Let me get the music rolling. I forgot all about it. There it is.
There it is.
Hearts.
Rod, you got to teach me how to do all these graphics, man. This is sophisticated stuff.
That's a Mac thing.
That's not knowing how to turn it off on your Mac.
All right, y'all. Thanks for hanging out. That's it for us. We'll catch you next time. We love you.
All love, people. Good night.
That's a background. That's not the overlay. There we go.
I think we should stay on screen and while we do our
Want us to dance?
I'm a huge fan of this outro. This is my proudest moment. This outro. It's powdered sugar.
I don't think this one has the Adios Turd Nuggets soundbite at the end.
It doesn't.
But I wish it did.